And the next guest that we have brought on is such a treat for you. Stuart Warren Dansby is an MMA champion, and he didn't start until his 40s. And so his epic episode, I think that you will really, really enjoy. And it points you to his documentary that he did. In this documentary that I really enjoyed watching, and I'm not into fighting at all, but it's not a story about fighting. It's a story about love. And it's really very worth your time. So please enjoy. I hope you do as much as I did. So, Stuart, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Kara. It's truly my privilege. I appreciate the invite and I'm honored to be here today. Thank you.
Absolutely my pleasure. And guys, I just want to I know I told you in the intro, but I want to tell you how much I enjoyed watching the documentary that he produced, and we'll get more into that as we go. However, at the end of this, you can click a link. You can even go on Prime and watch it, and it is incredible. So let's back up a little bit before we get into your main story. And what was life like for you as a child? How did you end up being the Stuart that you are today?
An awful lot of mistakes to be the steward that I am today, for sure. But I was raised as a military brat, so to speak, by Depression era parents who, we thought were horribly strict at that point. But as you get older, you realize how remarkable they were as parents, and bounced around quite a bit. Born in Japan, lived in Greece, spent a lot of time in Canada and bounced around, which that probably helped me a great deal in being who I am today because what it taught you was you could be miserable or you could adjust to your environment, right? Because every few years you're moving, new friends, new places, new cities, new languages, right? So you could be miserable and be like, I hate this, or you could say, hey, how do I adjust and how do I have fun? And I talk about this in the documentary. It's one of the reasons I'm comfortable living in Miami, where I am absolutely a minority, right? But because I appreciate other cultures with that upbringing. And for sure, everything else, as a young adult was like everybody, I joke I moved to Miami in my mid 20s when I was both bulletproof and immortal. Because I think a lot of us believe that when we're in our 20s, right? You're like, yeah, nothing can happen to me. Um, and that's where I certainly learned a lot of good lessons. Saw a lot of my friends get caught up in things they shouldn't and lost a few along the way. And those have been life lessons for me on what I do and don't want to do. And then, in my early 40s, starting when I'd met my wife and we got together, that was another life changing experience because she's just been such a remarkable guide and a leader by example in how I should conduct myself. And then fighting in starting that in my late 40s training completely changed my life as well.
Wow, I don't think I picked that up from the documentary that you didn't start until your late 40s. And how did
Yeah.
Stella, your beautiful bride, how did she feel about you saying, "Hey, I'm going to start fighting, MMA fighting"?
So yeah, so it started slowly, right? I just started training kickboxing with a friend of mine. And she would come and be a part of it and watch. And for a couple of years, she actually started training with me a little bit before she had a rash of injuries. But just to be supportive, she would do that. And she would always show up. Even I remember in the beginning when I was horrible. I remember one time I was sparring and I come over to the corner and she looks at me and she's like, that guy's killing you with his jab. Why are you letting him kill you with his jab? Why don't you stop his jab? I looked at her and I wanted to say, do you think you should go in there and try and stop his jab? Because you're welcome to, right? I didn't. Some of the smartest moments I've had as a husband are when I've shut up. Um,
Take notes, take
but
notes.
yeah, right. That's the kind of support she's lent me from the beginning, is she's always been, let me be a part of it. And certainly she always hoped that it wouldn't lead to fighting, right? Okay, it's cool that he spars, it's cool that he trains. I'm still getting banged up, coming home with black eyes, coming home with tons of injuries, head split open. But she always kind of hoped I wouldn't take it to that next level of, yeah, I'm going to actually fight, right? But when I did, the support's always been there. I remember just before my first fight, I have two world-class coaches, and you know this because you've watched the documentary. One is a three-time world champion. The other one is in the Florida MMA Hall of Fame. And she comes up to me about 2 weeks before my fight. And I remember facing away from her. And she said, baby, can I be in your corner for the fight? And again, Farah, this is that moment where some of my best moments of wisdom are when I shut up. Because in my head, I thought, I got Greg Choplin, three-time world champion. I got Manolo Lopez. What are you possibly going to say that's going to give me more wisdom than how do you think you can step in front of it, right? I didn't say it. I turned around and she clearly saw it on my face, right? She read me. She's like, not to tell you how to fight, you dumb beep, whatever you want to put in there. She said, I want to be there for your spiritual support. I want to be there to ground you. I want to be there so that you know you are loved and my energy is with you, right? So I think that answers your question probably more emphatically than I could ever describe.
Wow. Wow. That you hit the jackpot. And I knew that before even actually meeting you just by watching. That the support that she had for you, the love that she has for you, and the woman's natural tendency to want to control, she is keeping her mouth shut too. And so that seems to be working for you guys. You've been married how long now?
We've been together about 22 years now.
All
Yeah.
right. And you're
So
still
married.
smiling.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, but she's also, at the end, and we'll get to that. She also hit me with some wisdom that I kind of had to look in the mirror and face of how long I'm going to do this, right? Um, so she's been both that support and she's also been that guide of at some point you know how this ends and it ends badly for every fighter, right? So I'm blessed for sure.
Right on. Right on. Okay. So you met your lady in your 40s. You started fighting in your late 40s, well, sparring in your late 40s. And
Like
your
48.
48. And your first fight was the one that I saw in the documentary.
That was the first fight in a ring. I'd fought twice before on a mat at 55 against both a 19 and a 26-year-old. And that's actually what inspired me to do the documentary. As I was preparing for that first fight, people were walking up to me and saying, you're inspiring me. And Kara, I'm just looking at them saying, I'm trying to knock up MFer out and not get knocked out. I don't know what you're speaking about. How am I inspiring you? And that was my honest reaction. And it kept happening. And people and other fighters coming up to me and telling me this. And I'm just like, okay, if my teammates and other fighters are saying this, then I have an obligation. I'm not the best fighter in this room by any means, but I have to lead by example and attitude and effort and desire to learn. Because those are three things that I can bring to the table that nobody can outdo me in, right? You can match it, but you can't get more because if you give more, then I'm going to give more effort and attitude and desire to learn, right? And after I'd won my first fight, I made it to the finals that night in a tournament. I lost in a tournament. I was fighting this young man who was 19, about 6'2", and it was a nasty fight. He was talking trash. And the minute the fight was over, the moment the fight was over, he turns and he looks at me and he says, how old are you? Just like that. I'm like, that's your question? Really? And I said, 55. And he's like, no freaking way. No way. So they go to hold his hand up as the winner. And I'm standing there between the ref. And as they hold his hand up, he grabs my hand. And I have a great picture of this. And he holds it up and he's crying with so much emotion. And he looks at the crowd and he says, this is your champion. This is your champion right here. And that's his exact quote. We had an opportunity to train this year together. We kept in touch, and he's now three kids, successful businessman. He came to Miami recently. We trained together, and that bond that was created that day was still there. But after he did that, people were walking up to me out of the stands, grown men, guys I didn't know, and they were holding me and they were telling me crazy things about how that inspired them. And I walked off that mat and I said to myself, God blessed me with a journey I shouldn't have. I shouldn't be able to do this. But I have two world-class coaches, two of the highest striking coaches in the country who are opposing coaches When they see each other to fight, they're on the opposite ends of a ring or a cage. They're both in my corner. They come together at this one moment. I have high level UFC fighters going for a championship, sparring with me, pushing me, kicking my ass with love, dropping me and saying, get back up, come at me, get back up. I shouldn't have this. But if this is inspiring people, then I want to pay it forward. And that's where the idea for the documentary came. Was at that moment as I'm walking off the mat, I said, I've got to do this. I've got to share this message with people of how to get out of your own head, because we all have a fight. We all have things that hold us back from what our dreams are, right? And we all think, I don't have the resources that she has, so I can't be open my own business. I don't have the education that he has, so I can't be a CEO. I have bad parents, so I can't be a good parent. We have things that hold us back. And what my mission was, using fighting as the metaphor, was to show people you can achieve what you think you can't. How do you get out of your own head? How do you put that energy into the world? And you saw this in the documentary. I call it the I want it more than I want to breathe energy. And you give it every day, because when you do, the people and the resources that are all around you right now that you don't see and you can't access, when you give your dream, your goal, that energy, those people and those resources, they'll start coming forward. They will start to appear, right? And then that's when the real work begins. Because then you got to give it more. You've got to give it more energy. You've got to give those people more than they thought they were going to get. And when you do, they're going to rise. They're going to give you more. They're going to say, okay, I pushed that guy further than I thought I could. And now he's pushing back. I've got to give him more. I've got to give him more. And the whole team rises.
You are amazing. You really are. I am blown away, absolutely blown away. And people that are listening right now don't even know why I'm so blown away, because we haven't even gotten into it yet. I mean, they heard your story that you at 55 fought a 21-year-old who was like so impressed, like beyond impressed. And then you go on, and let's go a little further into the story.
Right. So then I'd done a television show with my wife a few years before, and we'd had a company produce it. We'd become very close, a company called War Post, a gentleman named Carlos Arieta. And Carlos always said to me, hey, if you want to do another project, let me know. I love working with you guys. After that show, we didn't get renewed. So I sat down with Carlos right after that fight. I said, I want to meet. I have an idea. Never done a documentary. He had never done a documentary as a production company because he's mostly commercial work. And I sat down for about an hour and a half. And like this, I poured my heart out to him of what I wanted to do. And Carlos was very thoughtful. He listened. And he said a couple things that were compelling. The first thing, he looked at me after I talked. And again, I talked for probably an hour and a half. And he said, okay, this is not a story of fighting. And I was like, what do you mean? I said, brother, this is a story of love. And I had an epiphany, and I said, you're right. It's the love of a dream. It's the love of a team that supports me without question. It's the love of my wife. It's the love of accomplishment. It is 100% about that story. And he said, that's the story we're going to tell. We're not going to tell a fighting story. We're going to tell a story of how you achieve these things. And then the second thing I said to him, I said, okay, now I'll fund this documentary out of my pocket. And he said, okay, what you just described, he said, you got $250,000 in your pocket. And I looked at him and I said, I will not fund this documentary out of my pocket instantly. And I said, but I know you. You're a hardcore business person and you're still talking to me. There's got to be a reason. And he said, yeah, we'll partner on this, but we can only do it when my team is not working, when they don't have paid stuff. And that ended up taking, for a lot of reasons. Part of it was the story wasn't told, but it ended up from that moment till the time we got it into national distribution on all these platforms, took 9 years. And the film follows my journey for 6 years, but it took that long to bring this to fruition. And a big part of that was I thought the story was told. And this might sound a little pretentious, but it's not. But God wasn't ready yet. The story wasn't told, and I got guidance. As I continued to do this, the signs came and said, no, the story's not over. There's another piece to this story, right? And that's when I got to fight for a championship 6 years later. But that's how it all started, right? And so at that point, we were just thinking, how do we piece this together? We've got pictures, we got a little video. We don't have that much, but we really didn't know. We just knew we were going to do this documentary and tell the story. So I decided to fight again, and that's the fight that opens in the film. My first fight in a ring, smaller gloves, longer rounds, and you're in a ring, and it's just much more intense, right? And I remember calling Carlos and saying, "Hey, I'm going to fight again. You don't want to film it, do you?" Kara, just like that, right? Just like that, because you think about the pressure of fighting. You think about all your friends coming, and then you say, "Oh, and on top of that, we're going to film it." And then your mind, and this is the cancer, in your mind, you say, "Well, what if I get knocked out in the first round? Then not only my friends see it, but then it's on the documentary. How is that a document? That's the cancer. And it will grow. That little tumor will grow like this if you don't flush it instantly with positivity and how this is going to look, how I'm going to win, what we're going to do, how we're going to accomplish it. And that's where you have to go instantly, right? But I remember that moment when getting on the phone saying, "Payment, he's going to film it." Because you contact your opponent, you say, "Hey, we need an image release." And your opponent's like, "Sure, I'll sign that." But you know what? You're not getting your happy ending, not to this fight, right? So it's even more antagonistic to them that, hey, this dude's going to film a documentary and he wants you to be the victim, right? Your opponent's not going to accept that. But that's how it all started.
Man, it's just absolutely amazing. So the Dr. Amen calls them ants, automatic negative thoughts, and you have to kill the ants. So how do you kill the ants?
That's a great question. I think that for everyone, it's a process, right? For me, a couple of things I do daily is I pray and then I meditate with affirmations. And I did it this morning, right? I have a couple of basic ones that I always do, and then how do I want to think? How do I want to act? How do I want to function today? Because if you think about this, the average human has about 60,000 thoughts a day. So if you're in a negative place and you're looking at social media and you're looking at, oh my God, look at this politics, war, and then God forbid, you watch the news, and now you got more of it, right? And then you're stressed because you're at work and you've got a bad day at work and you're stressed. And then you get up the next morning. Here's what's happened. The outside world has programmed your mind. And we can't avoid that completely. We can to an extent because we can be very clear about what we put in our mind and what we allow in our mind. Does it serve us purpose? Um, so you get up in the morning and then you repeat the process and you're starting at a negative because you already got all these negative thoughts, all this world's going to end, people are killing each other, and you're just repeating and repeating and repeating. So what meditation and affirmations do, I'm not going to let the world control how I think, act, and function. I am going to control it daily with how I want to think, act, and function. Now, when I'm in a fight training camp, which is the most intense time, I will switch most of those affirmations to how I want to fight. And I will visualize how I'm going to win. And those are the only thoughts that come in my head. How am I going to win? I can also and will also visualize the potential worst moment of the fight where I'm injured, where I'm hurt, where I look up and there's still 2 minutes left in the round and my opponent's bearing down on me and I can't breathe and I'm hurt. And I will function in that moment. I will visualize, how do I want to be in that moment? Who do I want to be? One of the remarkable things about fighting is you get to define on that day who you are, because there's nothing more compelling than stepping into a ring or a cage and looking at another human being that has the will, the skill, and the malice to render you unconscious. That moment is the most telling moment, that one of the most telling moments you could have in your life. How do you function at that moment? So the beauty of fighting is it gets you You can define who you are, but more importantly, in training and in sparring and in fighting, you can define who you want to be. And some days I don't like it. Some days I'm sparring, I survived, but I know I could have dug deeper. I know I just got by, and I'm not happy with that. And I've had fights that way, right? Where I'm like, you got by, but you didn't dig deep enough. You are who you are, but you didn't define who you want to be. You didn't bring it up that way, right? So I think the power of meditation and specifically affirmations on a daily basis, where it's a habit, right? And that's what you think and how you and couple that with the work that you put in, because you have to put the work in. And when I'm talking about work, I'm talking about pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone. And I'm not necessarily talking about fighting here. I'm talking about when you want to quit, giving it more oxygen, giving it more effort at those moments. And when you do that, you will naturally surround yourself with the right people. And if they're not the right people, you're not even consciously, you're going to get them out of your life. You're going to see they're not going to stay in your life, right? So when you're surrounded with those positive people that are at a higher level that you can learn from, right? And we all know this lesson in business. You surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, people that are more accomplished, you will become part of that, right? As opposed to vice versa. It's the same thing. It relates every way. When you surround yourself with those people, when you give that maximum effort of living outside your comfort zone, and you couple that with the daily programming of how you want to think, act, and function, you can beat all that stuff. That cancer doesn't come into your body. And if it does, you just crush it quickly. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And I want to dig in a little more because meditation is something we talk about a lot on this program. And I'm not going to lie, I am surprised that an MMA fighter spends that kind of time in meditation. Can you give us a little more details when you say I meditate with affirmations? Is it a recording you're listening to, or are they your own affirmations?
So I think that's a great question. A lot of people really resonate with recordings they listen to. Guided meditations, they're called. And for a lot of people, that really works. And if it does, it does. There's no right or wrong way. Okay. And I'm prefacing that because I don't use those. I've tried them, and it doesn't. I always find, okay, that person's voice is annoying me or something, right? That will take me off track. Um, I use affirmations for myself. And so prayer always kind of clears the table for me, meaning it puts me at ease, it puts me at peace, and that allows the mind to slow down. And then I do some breathing exercises to really oxygenate my body and let it relax, right? And then from there, I'll go into my affirmations. And um, a lot of our stress basically, if you back it up, it's fear based. Why are you stressed? Because you're afraid something is going to go right. So one of my affirmations daily is I am loved by God. And another one is I am protected by God. And another one is I am safe. Right. And then I'm blessed. And those are my first four that I start my day with every day. Because when I take that in, that I'm loved by God, that I'm protected, that I'm safe, and that I'm blessed, now I can start really going, okay, this is your base. This is your base. Now, what else? What else is important to you today? Right. So if I had a day where I was impatient with other people, um, then it might be I am patience, right? And I am, as you know, those are very powerful words. And one of the things I catch myself, and I've finally taken me years. I get up in the morning sore, my knees are swollen. I have grade 4 arthritis in both knees. I'm bone on bone, I'm tired, and I'll wake up at 5 a.m. and oh God, I'm so tired. And I'll be like, stop. You're not. You're just sleepy. You're fine. You're good. Haven't woken up yet. I have to reprogram just little things like that because you're telling yourself you're tired. So you're programming yourself for the day that you're tired. It's BS, man. You're selling yourself short at that moment. But those are the tools that I use for meditation. And I think a lot of people, when you talk to them about meditation, they'll tell you, I've tried and I can't stay focused. That's the big challenge. Because think about meditation, completely focusing on absolutely nothing. Huh? what the hell did you just say? It's ridiculous, right? Conceptually, it's ridiculous. So I think most of us, especially in today's society where we're moving fast, we're hit with so many visuals, so much sensory overload, and we are multitasking throughout our lives. So many of us struggle. They're like, yeah, I just can't do it. Where affirmations come in is you are focusing in on a specific thought. And that's why it's so much easier. So if I say for today, I say, I am thoughtful because I found myself in a meeting yesterday being quick to judge, quick to boom, 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 and I didn't speak as thoughtfully as I want, right? So I just think about slowing down, actively listening more, and how I want to be in those moments. And that's where it's an easier meditation because I have a purpose to what I'm doing. And I'll repeat each one of those 3 times, right? I'll do 3 sets, if you will, of my affirmations. You're not going to notice in a day. But if you do that every single day, you'll notice that if it is being more thoughtful, you'll catch yourself throughout the day saying, oh, hold back, listen more, respect that person's opinion more, think before you speak, right? As an example. Make sense?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Stephen Covey, seek first to understand and then to be understood. And it's such an art, and so few people ever do it. Listening, guys, for those of you that are dealing with people in any way, listening is your superpower, and you really have to work on it. And it is, oh my gosh, is it powerful? It's the way you learn too, right?
It is. I was blessed. I'm in a marketing role now full time, but I was in sales most of my adult life, and I taught sales. And the first thing including writing a course on it, and the first thing is 80% of successful selling is listening, right? Once you listen, and when I say selling, I'm talking about convincing people of what's important, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish in this life, right? But you can't do it until you connect with that human and understand their point of view and understand what their concerns are and understand what's important to them, right? So that's you're 100% right. It is 80% of successful negotiation, of conversation, of relationship building. Have a Coke and a smile, shut the F up and listen.
Very good advice. That right there is a short. I can just see it coming. That's a good one. Okay, so now you are training. Now, I just want to say something about the training. I'm watching you get the crap beat out of you for 75 minutes of this thing. I mean, literally, you guys, he's on 2 blocks. He's got his arms on one. He's laying face down, kind of arms on one, legs on the other. And there is a dude that is just, look, all of his might just kicking him and kicking him and kicking him. I never really thought about the need for that, so that when you do get hit, it's not, if someone hit me one time the way that these guys are kicking you, I think I might die. Like literally, I'm not being melodramatic here. It was unbelievable. And you just are taking it and taking it. So that's conditioning so that when you're in the ring, the hits don't have as much power.
Yeah, you saw that first fight, right? And then in that first fight, I almost got knocked out in the first round, right? And you saw the ref stop. He gives me what's called the standing 8 count. I didn't know where I was. I'm literally, it's like I was high, right? I'm just like kind of looking at him like, oh, right? So you want to get yourself to where when you're in the fight, you don't feel those more than understanding, okay, 2 different schools of thought, right? So let's say you fall down, you scrape your knee, right? You get any physical pain. When that happens, what are we doing? We're like, oh my God, that hurts. I just fell down my knee. Oh my God, my knees. And all I'm doing right now is I'm focusing on where that pain is. And that's all I can think about is that pain, right? And finally it subsides, and then I can think about something else. In fighting, what's fascinating about fighting, just like in life, you don't get timeouts. You can't call it. If you call, hey, I'm hurt. Can I get a timeout? Boom, fight's over. You're out. Same thing in life, right? So when something bad happens to us in life, what do? most of us, whether we realize it or not, we go right into victim mentality. Well, that bad thing happened to me, right? And so that's what you're focusing on, is that bad thing. And fighting will be more direct with a metaphor. I get kicked in the leg, hits my sciatic nerve, it hurts like hell, right? So what I want to do, I'm not going to think about the pain. I'm going to think, okay, he landed that leg kick. He's going to want it again. Now, what am I doing? So there's something we talk about in the film, obstacles and problems, or the difference between stress and challenge is one word. It's perspective, right? So if I have stress, I'm thinking about, oh my God, that's bad, this is bad, that hurts, this hurts. But if I walk up to you and say, Kara, we got a problem. Instantly inside, you're like, oh crap. He just said we got a problem, right? If I walk up to you and say, hey, Kara, we got a challenge we need to work on. How do you feel internally then? Okay, I got to get up for it, but it's something we can do, right? And that's what we're talking about here. So if the guy kicks me in the leg and lands a kick and I'm, crap, that hurt. I've got a problem. He's got a great low kick. Or I can be, all right, that's a challenge. He's going to want that same kick again. So I'm going to bait him. I'm going to make him think he can get it. And when he does, when he goes for it, I'm going to counter him. You've got to, you see how that applies in life? It's the same thing. Like you just got your ass handed to you in business. Somebody just took a real estate deal out from under you, right? You could think I'm a victim. That still doesn't get you paid. Or you can say, what can I learn? We have an expression in fighting. It's very black and white. You win or you learn.
That
That's
should
it.
be a saying in life.
It is. And I have friends of mine that are fighters, and they'll be like, oh, bro, listen, the ref, you see what it is. The ref didn't give me any, like, I don't even know, like, I should have won. You can tell the ref and the judges, I'm like, did you win? No. Okay, then what did you learn? Because everything else coming out of your mouth right now is ego. All I hear is ego. If you can say, all right, I didn't do enough of this, or I need to do more of that, now you're learning. And that's what we all naturally do. So when we have a defeat, it's not really defeat. When we have a setback, it's a lesson. What can you learn at that moment? So to get back to your question, it is physically, yes, getting your body able to absorb those kicks. So you are used to them. So when you get kicked, you're like, okay, I got kicked. So what? I've got kicked before. I've been dropped before. I didn't die. But it's more, how am I going to handle that kick? So it's the physical conditioning, but moreover, it's the mental preparation of how you're going to handle that opponent or getting your ass kicked at that moment. When we go back to that first fight, my coach said to me afterwards, he said, my wife told me, she said, Greg reached for the towel. He was about to throw in the towel because you were so out of it. And I talked to him afterwards, and he said, I was close, but I was watching you. I know you. And I know once you could clear your head, he was in trouble, not you, because I know how you're going to respond to that adversity. We just had to get you through that adversity, right?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So you go in, and the first fight that's in the ring is, you are 56 years old at the time. Guys, I want you to
Correct.
think about that. Uh, 56 years old, and you're going to go into the ring with a young man who is 30 years your junior.
Correct.
What were you thinking?
It's a good question. I've only ever won one argument with my coach, with Greg, ever. And have you ever had a coach in life, and you're a coach, right? You don't win arguments with your coach, right? When I told him I wanted to do my first fight, he said, okay, all right, we'll do this. I'm going to get you somebody in their 50s. And I said, nope. He rolls his eyes. He's like, all right, I'll get you somebody in their 40s. And I said, nope. Can I at least get you somebody in their 30s? I said, Greg, who do I spar with here? Are you lining me up with guys in their 30s and 40s? No, I'm going against 25-year-old fighters like everybody else. I said, here's the deal. You'll get me a first time or second time fighter like you would any other fighter. If I win or lose, it ain't because he's younger and I'm older. I will win or lose because I'm the better fighter or he is. It's that simple. I didn't want to grade on a curve. I can't. Life isn't graded on a curve. So what's the accomplishment if I beat a guy that's a first time fighter in his 50s? Well, honestly, I don't care. It means nothing. I want that. That gives me the chip on my shoulder. You think you're better than me because you're 22? You might be better than me, but it ain't because you're 22. It's because you got more skills, and I'm going to get better at that, right? And so for me, that was so important. And the bigger challenges here, and I want to share this with your audience. My right knee does not have an ACL. An ACL is what holds your knee stable from moving laterally. I literally have bone on bone grade 4 arthritis. There's no gap in my knee. The last surgeon that was in there some 6 years ago looked at me after surgery and said, I remember he said, okay, now it's honesty time. And I'm like, this can't be good. And I said, what? And he said, well, we cleaned up all the cartilage we could, but your next operation is a knee replacement. And I said, nah, I don't think so. And he said, look, medically speaking, I cannot explain how you can walk on that knee, much less train, much less fight. And he said, the only explanation I have is if somebody asked me, I would tell them, God blessed you with a positive attitude. And you probably don't believe me right now. And I remember I looked at him, I said, so what are you saying? And Stella, my wife's there. She's like, I think you just said it, right? She starts laughing. My left knee has a surgically repaired ACL, grade 4 arthritis as well. I have a degenerative disc in my neck, and I have asthma. So I have every excuse in the world not to do this. And there's people that will look at me and say, you're stupid and it's dumb for you to do this because there's all that risk. But when you look at all those things and you think, I can't open a business and succeed because I don't have financing. Yes, you can. When you look and say, I can't be a CEO, no, you can. If you find these people in life that have been successful at anything they do, a successful parent that's raised great kids, a successful CEO, a successful realtor. And you look at these people and you see them at their peak, right? You're like, my God, they're amazing. Have a conversation with them, sit down and say, share with me all the problems and obstacles that you faced that you turned into challenges, because you will be surprised if you haven't done this in your life. You have. But for those of our listeners that haven't, you'll be shocked at the things that they overcome. But nobody's in that ring with me saying, hey, this guy's got a bad right knee. He's got an ACL tear. I can tell. Nope, you can't tell, because we've learned how to work around it. We've learned how to make that liability a strength.
Gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, so the drum roll is happening. You have won the fight with your coach. You have this lined out. You go into the ring with this young man. Tell us about that fight.
So I'll tell you two things. One is when I stepped into the ring, and it was, again, my first time in a ring, I swear to you, Kara, the ring felt like it was 30 feet in the air. I remember looking down like, oh my God, I'm going to fall out of this thing. That's how intense the experience is. And it's only 3 feet, right? But I felt like I was up on a tower fighting. And I remember looking at him, and I had a moment where it was a millisecond where I went, holy crap, what am I doing here? This is insanity. There's all these people. I got to get out of here. What the hell am I doing? Can I just, and there was like that for a millisecond. And I looked over my shoulder and I saw my wife and I saw my two coaches, and I looked out at the audience and I actually heard a chant that I would never expected. And it's Stuart, Stuart. And I just looked back at my opponent and I'm like, I can't lose, because their love, their energy, their power, their strength is inside me. And I can't lose. I can beat you. I know this because I have the power of that team inside me. So that was probably one of the most remarkable moments, and a turning point for me, if you will, in my fighting career. And then, I stepped in and he came out brutally hard. This guy went on to be the ISKA state champion, and he just starts messing me up. And I was coming out relaxed, and he just overwhelms me. I'm literally standing there. I remember the ref stepping in between us and giving me a standing 8 count, and it was kind of like I was in a dream. I remember like it's like 1, 2, and I'm just looking at him, and my head started to clear. And I remember thinking, okay, he's giving you a standing 8. You can't, this can't happen. You cannot lose this fight. You can't. That was my first thought when my head started clear. You can't lose. Say something, say something. And I looked at him and I said, get the F out of my way. I can fight. And I know him to this day. I didn't know him as guy, Ray Ramos, and Ray just looks at me and goes, okay, it's all I needed to hear. Go. Right. And I survived that round, and I remember coming, and you'll see this in the film. I'm sitting in the corner. They've got my legs elevated, and they're talking to me, and I'm just kind of looking at them like, holy cow. But what was remarkable was how calm my coaches were, right? And I remember Greg saying to me, that was beautiful. And I'm kind of like, are you on ESPN watching something? Because what are you watching? And what do you mean that was beautiful, right? And he's like, he's taller than you. When you're fighting him in long distance, he's winning. Every time you get close to him, you're winning. And now I'm overwhelmed. This kid's been kicking my ass for a round. So he gave me the formula that even in my altered state, I could understand. All I want is simple moves. I don't need anything fancy. I need this low kick, this punch, this kick. That's it. Get in close. You can beat him. And that's where the power of the team comes in. Because at that moment, I was overwhelmed. I knew I lost that round. I knew I almost got knocked out. How do I beat this massive opponent that's just destroying me, right? And so the second round was more even. He still won it. And then we went into the third round. Greg said he's tired. He's ready to go down. And I won the third round. And so my victory in that fight was coming back after being knocked out, after being just devastated in that first round, not knocked out, but almost knocked out. And finally winning the third round. And you saw it. It was like a Rocky fight. It was an intense fight. And the refs came up to my wife afterwards and said, Stuart got that third round, right? And then you saw the reaction after he won the fight, but you saw how him and his corner reacted after they won the fight, which was you couldn't have scripted what happened, right? You absolutely couldn't have scripted it. So that was a remarkable experience. So it's interesting. The fact that, and we'll give a little bit of the film away. After the fight was over, him and his coach literally picked me up on their shoulders and carried me around the ring. That amount of respect there's so much respect in fighting. You'll see it all the time after guys fight each other and girls fight each other. There's just so much respect. But that was remarkable. And you could see it the second the fight was over. We just looked at each other. And I remember Steven coming up to me and he's like, dude, what was that? That was crazy. I hit you with everything I should have gone down. You wouldn't go. That was nuts. And we bonded. We're holding each other so much so. The ref came up and he said, guys, can you break it up? I got to announce a winner. And so, as you know, they announce him as the winner. He drops to his knees, thanks God. And then him and his coach pick me up and carry me around the ring. And then as we're walking out, one of the referees walks up to my wife and says, hey, Stuart won that third round. So I felt like I had grown. I felt like I went through the mud to get to the water. I didn't win, but there was victories there. I learned a ton, and I make no excuses for the fact that I didn't win. I didn't learn how to win until that third round, right? And what to do. So I learned so much about what I'm capable of enduring in that first round. I learned how to be better in the first round. And I actually went home that night and I felt amazing. And I feel amazing. Typically I'm high, literally high for 2 weeks after a fight. Like I am just on a rush. And I remember got home late. And then my wife's like, we had a celebratory drink and she's like, okay, I'm going to bed. And I'm like, I'm not. So I remember sitting out on the balcony, Kara, and I finished a bottle of wine, and I'm like, okay, I'm completely sober. And I went through another half bottle of wine, and I'm still like this. I'm articulating like this. I'm not even buzzed, and I'm like, all right, it's 4 in the morning. Let's not finish that second bottle. Let's just shut it down. But that's how I felt, to answer your question. I was that high off of the experience, off of all the two-a-days during training camp and all the punishment and all the times in that training camp. I got injured so bad during training camp. I got hit with so many knees at one point in my kidneys that I was peeing blood the next day. And I still went and sparred the next day, right? Because you got to want it more than you want to breathe. And you can question it. You can say, well, that was stupid. But I had a plan. If that didn't stop by the end of the day, I was going to the hospital. But I also knew what it was. It was all the punishment I taken to my kidneys. They were bleeding a little bit. They would be fine. That's what fighters told me. And fighters are just like doctors. So I knew that would be true. Maybe not. But it's all that punishment, all you put yourself through. It was an amazing reward to just sit there and take it in. And I felt absolutely incredible.
So then you waited 6 more years. You didn't wait. You were training, you were doing things for 6 years, but you got back in the ring again. And this time you were 62 and you're fighting a young man who's 32, again, 30 years your junior. And how
Yeah.
did your wife, beautiful Stella, feel about that?
That was the first time she ever pushed back, right? And she didn't push back. She just wasn't engaged during that training camp. And I'm a stubborn human. I don't ask permission. I just said, hey, babe, I'm going to fight again, right? And I could tell she wasn't negative, but she just wasn't connected, right? And then she came up to me. It's the day that I was going to, they call it promotion day, where they'll do interviews for the fight, and they're promoting and they're filming the fight. And she came up to me that morning and she said, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to do this? Like, I'm concerned for your long-term health. I'm concerned that you're going to get kicked or hit in the head. And like, I'm really concerned. And I tried to articulate it as best I could, which is simply, I'm doing something I absolutely love and I'm pushing myself every day to be better at it. And it's not a physical push. It's the emotional, mental push of, can I do one more session, one more round? Can I get this much better? And it's really a mental push. And within that, me pursuing something I love at its highest level, its most difficult level. And this is what I shared with her. Makes me a better husband, makes me a better father, makes me a better human. It makes me more patient. It makes me more appreciative. Literally, when I'm pursuing something I absolutely love and pushing myself out of my comfort zone, every aspect of who I am as a human being is improved and elevated. And that's why I want to do it. And I don't think I answered that really well, because I probably didn't even articulate it as well as I did with you. And she walked up to me about an hour later and she said, are you going down to the arena for promotion day? And I said, yeah. And she said, do you want company? And that's when I knew she was with me, right? That's what she needed to hear that. And I knew she was with me at that moment.
It's a good thing she was with you. So this fight was a championship fight with the big belt and the whole bit. So tell us a little bit about this one.
So this was interesting. Again, I said it earlier that God kind of had to tap me on the shoulder for this documentary. I was not planning on filming the documentary for this fight at all. So I go down, I'm just fighting it because I want to fight. And I go down to the promotion that day. And while the promoter is interviewing me, he says on camera, and Stuart's going to be filming his documentary here as part of this fight. And in my head, Kara, I was like, I am? The hell? And then I kind of, the other part of my head went, pay attention, dumbass. God is trying to tell you something. There's a reason that he's saying this. He's handing it to you. And I was like, holy cow. Now, at this point, it's not a title fight yet. It's just a fight. So I go to Carlos and I say, hey, Carlos, do you want to film it? He says, yeah, but they can't because it's a national pay-per-view, so we can't get any more cameras. So I go back to the promotion. The promotion says, we'll give you any footage you want. Just let us know. And we'll give you everything you want. So what happens is the state of Florida, the beginning, the promotion says, hey, the state of Florida wants you to take this physical. And I'm like, I've never been asked to take a physical before a fight. And this is 3 pages long of specific requirements. This is crazy, but okay, I'm going to go do it. I'm 8 weeks out from the fight. Go do it, turn it in. 2 weeks go by, no answer. Contact the promotion. They said, oh, yeah, now the state of Florida wants proof of your previous fights. I'm like, oh, that's crazy. So I had to document my fights, my opponent's fights, all the promotions, send it back to them. 2 weeks go by, no answer. I still don't have my license. What I'm talking about is the state of Florida Boxing Commission will not issue me a license. Now you're in a training camp, you're cutting weight, you're getting beat up twice a day. The stress level, the focus is insane. And now we have this added layer of stress of what if I don't get my license? Again, a cancer if I allow that to creep in. But there's moments where you see it creeping in and you just got to smack it out. 2 weeks go by and I said, where's my license? They said, now they want sparring video. And I'm like, are you crazy? That's unprecedented. Nobody asked for sparring video. They want it. So I filmed myself with 2 MMA champions, pros, and 1 amateur MMA champion, guys that are better than me, guys that are a higher level. And I fight 3-minute rounds. I gave them 5-minute rounds unedited. And I sent a message back and I said, these are the monsters I train with every day. I can show you, I can send you film of me banging up somebody that's not as good as me, or I can show you the real world and how I compete with guys that are better than me. Send it in. 2 weeks go by. It's Friday before that promotion day. And the promotion calls me and says, okay, now they want an EKG stress test and a bleed out test. And I'm like, I've already given them an EKG. And they said, no, but it's not an EKG stress test. You need that. And a bleed out test, which is just how quickly your blood coagulates. And I'm like, this actually, I'm embarrassed this came out of my mouth, but I said, this is ageism. This is freaking ageism. Kara, what I did, if you didn't catch it right there, I became a victim. I immediately became a victim. I handed them the power. And I said, how long do I have to do this? This Friday afternoon. They said, you have to have it in by Wednesday. So I get off the phone and I call Stella, my wife. And I'm like, this is ageism. This is BS. I can't believe this crap. And she said, listen, if I'm the state of Florida Boxing Commission and I see a 62-year-old trying to fight a 32-year-old, I'm getting as far away from you as humanly possible. You are a liability. You might die in that cage. That's how they're looking at you. They don't know you. They don't know the monsters you train with. They don't know how many years you've trained. They don't know how many hits you've taken. They don't understand your heart. They don't understand your coaches. They don't know you. But you're a fighter. You need to quit thinking like a victim and start fighting. Get them what they need. I got off the phone because she level set my attitude, right? And I start calling. Guess what I found out? You can't get an EKG stress test without a cardiologist's prescription, and I have no heart problem, so I have no cardiologist. It's Friday afternoon. Finally, I run out of time. It's like 7 o'clock. Nobody's even answering the phone. So I race down to my GP's office Monday morning. And I probably came in a little hot here at this point. All right. So I need this bleed out test and I need an EKG stress test, but I don't have a cardiologist. And she's like, Stuart, give me the coffee. You don't need this. Sit tight. True story. Because I'm standing with a cup of coffee, like, oh, like an insane man. Like, I need this. I need it. Not me, just wired, right? She goes back. She comes out. She goes, okay. We'll get the EKGs. We'll get the bleed out test done now. And we share an office with a cardiologist. Come in Wednesday. Kara, when I say God blessed me and God guided this journey, that's what I mean. Like those things don't happen. If they didn't share an office with a cardiologist, what would have happened? Bottom line is I get the test on Wednesday, send in the promotion, and I get a call on Friday, go sell some freaking tickets. You just got your license. But that was the biggest challenge of this fight. And because we went through all that, promotion reached out and said, you know what, man, you exemplify, their words, what a martial artist should be. We're making this a title fight, and we're going to make it the main event of the fight. And it all just came together like that, right? I get a little emotional, but that's what transpired, and that's how it became a title fight.
Wow. And I don't want to ruin it for everyone, so I'm not going to ask you how that fight ended, but I'm going to tell you guys, you need to watch this. You need to watch this. It is so inspiring, and it makes you think, what is it I'm complaining about? What is it that I have? Like, put on your big girl or your big boy panties and go out there and just do it. And my goodness, I bet everybody in the world wishes they had a Stella.
Yeah, they do. They do. And we need those people in our lives. We need those people that support us even through, they may not see our vision, whatever our dream is, but we all need those people that will surround us with love and kick our ass with honesty, but support us with love, right? You need both of those things. And when you have that, you have a team that's unconquerable and unstoppable.
Okay, so is there anything that we've gone really long? I can't even believe it. I had no idea how long. I just looked at the clock and thought, oh my gosh. However, is there anything that I should have asked you, Stuart, that I didn't?
No, I think you asked some great, really compelling questions, and I'm appreciative of that. The thing I would share with your viewers is that this is no more a fighting documentary than Rocky is a boxing movie. Every single person listening has watched Rocky. Not every single person listening watches boxing. And why do you watch it? Because it's a story of love. It's a story of the underdog. In this case, as you know, it's a documentary that plays like a movie. And we couldn't write that. The thing about a documentary is it's got to be real. There's no script. There's no second takes. Even the testimonials with people, nobody's asked to start over. They just speak from the heart. So I would encourage you to watch it because it is the metaphor of how to get out of your own head. And again, we all have a fight, every one of us, and some of us have more than one. And we all have things that hold us back from what our dreams are. And I'm talking about people in our age group that have had successful careers, but they still are going, I could have done that, but it's too late because I'm old. Bullshit. It's not. It's not too late, right? Whatever that dream is, documentary. And again, I'm blessed because I am just simply a wheel in this whole thing, right? I'm the conduit to tell the story. It's not really about me. This is every person's story. And what it will show you is how to give that dream that energy to make it come alive. And when you do, the exact way of how people are going to come forward and resources are going to come forward to get you there. And the last bit of context I would share with you before I got to that championship fight, 15 years of getting my ass kicked, so many black eyes, so many injuries, I can't count them. So many people telling me I shouldn't and I couldn't. 9 years to make the documentary. The documentary was screened last year in 26 film festivals and won 32 awards for Best Feature, Best Inspirational, Best Biographical, Best Editing, Best Original Music Score done by Carlos's son at 16 years old, Best Direction. And it was a total team effort for all of us to come together to believe in this project, to bring it to fruition and to win those awards. But it tells you that it resonates with audiences when they watch it. So understand when you've been pushing for your dream for 6 months and it ain't happening, again, put your big boy, big girl pants on, have a Coke and a smile, and go one more round because you got one more round in you and it's not going to kill you. When you get your ass handed to you, don't make excuses. You win or you learn. And it's that simple. Did I win? No. Okay, what the F did I learn? What lesson can make me better today? Because then you got your own victory. Your victory was your knowledge, your skill set, how you pushed forward, right? 15 years of getting my butt kicked, 6 years of fighting, and 9 years to make the film. I can't tell you what time frame your dream's going to be on, but I can tell you this: the minute you quit, it's done. And if you keep pushing, you'll get there.
Amen. Amen. So the final question that I ask all of our guests, because you are on Think Your Way to an Epic Life, what are some tips or tricks that you can give our listeners to think their way to their own epic life?
I think one of the things we all do is we don't acknowledge what our dream really is. And I use the word dream a lot, right? You can call it goals, aspirations, dreams. You really got to sit back and say, okay, if I took all the handcuffs off, all the judgment, all of what my family would say, all of the things that I don't have, what do I really want to achieve in this life that allows me to be passionate and feel fulfilled? That's the number one place you've got to start, right? And a lot of times you know it, but you're not letting yourself admit it. I knew it the second I started to get into this. I'm like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done, and I love it. It can't beat me, though. It can't beat me. I got to be good at this. So the first thing is identify what in your soul makes you happy that you want to achieve, right? Because that's the definition of success right there. That's number one. And then number two, what are you willing to do for it, right? There's something that I talk about, and I'll leave you with this in the film. And I'll say it, I have three qualities. Three qualities. And you're going to hear this. I'm not bragging, because guess what? Any human being can have these three qualities. And number one, you can't outwork me. You can't. If I see you working hard, if I see you doing one more round, I'll be like, all right, nah, I'm going to do one more. You can't outwork me, right? Daily, you cannot bring a more positive frame of mind to me every day, every single day. And daily, you can't have a stronger desire to learn than me. So if every day you say to yourself, I'm going to have the most positive mental attitude I can, every day, I'm going to work as hard as I can at my dream, not as long, but as hard. It doesn't have to be 15 hours, just has to be focused. And every day I'm going to try and learn and get better. You are an unstoppable human being when you're following your passion if you do those three things.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Stuart. And guys, if you want to see the documentary, it's on very normal platforms. Can you give us the top four that it's on?
Sure. It's on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, iTunes, and Google Play.
Pretty
So,
easy for
or you
any
can
of
just
us
put
to
it,
get to.
yeah, you put it in your Roku stick or whatever you have, just search Taking the Fight and it'll pop. But you will have to pay $4.95 to watch me get beat up in high def and a big screen. Sorry, but it's what it costs. It's worth the price of admission. If I annoyed you on this podcast, then it's definitely worth the price of admission.
Stuart, we can't thank you enough. Guys, please check this out. It will inspire you. It will definitely change your trajectory from wherever you're headed to where it is you really want to go. Once again, sir, thank you very much. All my respect.
Thank you, Kara. Truly my privilege.